What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in with Callie. Please like, subscribe if you haven't already. So, good news, Clippers fans. Of course, you've been hearing me talk about lately about Kawhi Leonard's health status and everything's looking in the right direction. Everything's going in the right direction. You know, Kawhi's practicing with the team. Ty Lue actually spoke yesterday and said he's doing pretty much everything in practice besides maybe just being more physical, but he's been on the offensive side and the defensive side. He's practiced with the team pretty much for the most part. He just hasn't really done too much contact, and I think they're really just trying to make sure he's 100% instead of being 75 or 80%, just as Ty Lue alluded to and said. And I think that's a good way of looking at it and the best way to go because, you've had multiple situations of injuries with this superstar, and you definitely want him to be at his peak, at his highest as possible before you put him back out there on the floor. So I definitely understand that, and I definitely am all for it. And I definitely can't wait to see, Kawhi get back on the floor and play the game that we know he can at a high level. Because as I said before, this team is very, very talented in regards to just defensively. They got offensive pieces, of course, with Norman Powell and James Harden and a few others. And Zubac's been playing really good this year as well when they needed him to step up. And they had other guys step up too as well. And I think they're more predicated on defense than anything. And even Ty Lue said something about that, due to the fact that, based upon what we've seen of this team, they're very scrappy. They're very, very, very gritty. They're the type of team that you definitely want, put together when it's to come playoff time, especially if they have their superstar in place. And, their second star, James Harden, playing the way he's playing. And then their third star player, I'll say now especially, is Norman Powell. I mean, the way he's been playing, throughout this season for the most part, he's been a breath of fresh air for any Clippers fan out there who definitely has been watching and noticing him play. All signs are good so far. We'll just keep our fingers crossed and everything. But as of right now, the word on the street really is that, Kawhi should be ready to go in 2 weeks, which is basically Christmas Day from this point, from the day that we're on right now, which is the 11th. He should be ready to go on Christmas Day, which is very, very positive, in regards to, where this team is and, what they're trying to accomplish. And, having Kawhi, at least at the start, somewhere around the start of the new year, is pretty much exactly what they probably envision or hope for, because you start the new year with your superstar there. It does give you a decent amount of time to get him to gel with the guys that's actually on the floor now. And it's not like he has to go and gel with a bunch of guys who are offensively inclined, offensively talented. He has to go and gel with a bunch of guys who are gritty and like to play defense the same way he does. He just plays it at a higher level than everybody else on the team because he's a better player. But when you're going to war with guys that they have like Chris Dunn's and Derrick Jones Jr.'s, of course they got Nico, they still got Terrence Mann when he comes back in a few weeks, and you look at the pieces that they have overall. Honestly, like I said, I'm very impressed by the team, the way they put this team together, especially after losing Paul George and Russell Westbrook, which I honestly think they didn't need neither one of those guys. Even though their contributions were good to the Clippers, it wasn't great because they didn't come up when they needed to. And then when Kawhi went out last year in the playoffs, or never really started the playoffs, even though the 2 games he did play against Dallas where he wasn't himself, those 2 guys didn't show up really. And that really, was a setback for the Clippers, especially Paul George, because you're wanting the same amount of money and the same clout and everything as Kawhi Leonard, and you can't even do half of what he does in the playoffs. You may have 1 or 2 good games here and there, but the playoffs is a 7-game series. So you have to be able to bring it every night. And that's what I don't like about players like Paul George. They want to get paid like they're a superstar, but when it comes to acting like a superstar or playing like one in big moments and big games, he doesn't. And that's just very, very unfortunate for him. And I just definitely think that, he's just definitely not the player that I want to invest in. I've said years ago, I dealt with Paul George because he was on the Clippers and Kawhi, that was his guy, and vice versa. And Kawhi chose him to come to the Clippers years ago, but I never felt like Paul George would be the reason why they would win any championships or anything, because honestly, he had opportunities. All the time that Kawhi Leonard was out, he could have led the team, possibly to a finals. If he's as good as a lot of people thought that he was, and some people were saying that he was on the same level as Kawhi, which I thought that was 100% false, and I always will. And mostly, honestly, most people do too, because I mean, he's not even a top 75 player. Kawhi is. So what does that tell you? I mean, he was never on Kawhi Leonard's level. So anybody who ever thought that obviously was wrong. So I mean, you can look at it from a multitude of ways. It's not really a issue in regards to that specifically anymore. But right now, the Clippers are who they are, and they are where they are, and they're about to get their star back here soon. And I think that they can definitely shake some things up in the Western Conference. And I definitely think that teams like the Celtics and teams like that, if the Clippers are healthy, I think they need to watch out for a team like the Clippers. And I think teams like that know that as well, because the way this team is constructed, you add Kawhi Leonard back to the mix, it changes the dynamic of this team like almost 360, maybe damn near 720. I mean, it's just that much magnitude when he comes back and he's ready and he's at the peak of his powers. So I'm definitely liking what I'm seeing with the team overall, and they've done a good job. They stayed afloat for this long without him and still managed to be the 5th, 6th, 7th seed in the West and still be competitive. And that's all you want out of your team, especially until all your big guns come back. And with Kawhi nearing a return, it definitely gives the team encouragement, and it definitely gives them shows them light at the end of the tunnel, so to say. So I can't wait to see him on the court. I can't wait to see more from this team throughout the season. And Ty Lue's been doing a pretty good job himself. I got to give him some credit too. He's been holding things down, holding the fort down, and they just kept the ball rolling as much as they could. But as I said before, now with Kawhi getting ready to come back in the mix, as Ty Lue said also, now he can really see the justification of his team and put everything together and see how the team really is when they're fully staffed. And I think from my perspective, from what I've seen so far and what we already know of what Kawhi Leonard is and what he is to be when he comes back on the floor, when he's at the peak of his powers, they got a good chance to beat anybody.